Manage endless projects at my father's family construction business despite strategic aims, feeling trapped between roles and craving freedom. I work for my father, and my younger brother is also in the 70-years-old family business. We're a construction firm. I've worked at the company since I was 14, doing office work over the summers all the way through college. After getting my degree and working elsewhere for 7 years, I came back to the family business and for nearly 10 years have been working my way into more and more of a leadership role. My dad is my boss, but he is not a good delegator, manager, or mentor. He is a great project manager and knows the industry like the back of his hand and is good at his job, but very much not a teacher or long-term planner. On paper and sort of by actions, I am his heir apparent. But in reality I'm just being given a little bit of everything without any ownership over anything, and it's overwhelming. I am now point on some aspect of almost every part of the company: IT, HR, management, accounting, office management, marketing, and on top of that I keep getting construction projects to manage. I started here as a project manager, and note that none of our other PMs have any other office/admin responsibilities, just me. I keep trying to get out of project management, because it's hard to prioritize employee reviews or revamping the website when you're constantly pulled into project issues, which by definition need to take priority because they pay the mortgage. But every time I'm close to finishing out my last project, a really great prospect comes up and we don't have the staff to handle it, so I end up taking it on and I'm back on the hook for another 9 to 12 months of PM work taking 50% of my time. Every time we've tried to make a plan for me to take over a specific part of my father's role or our CFO's role, it just doesn't happen. They can't actually let go. Meanwhile, I'm just getting all the mundane stuff put on my plate, like ordering more laptops or figuring out how to run certain reports in our accounting software. These tasks don't interest me. I want to be big picture, I want to be strategic. We just had a strategic planning retreat 2 months ago, which I organized, pulled together the data and agenda for, and facilitated, all of which I really enjoyed. During that retreat, the decision was made that I would go get some financial training and move towards CFO and out of project management. Last week we landed a new 12 to 15 month project, and guess who is now the PM? We just hired a new PM, guess who is supposed to be training and mentoring him? Though I'm not his manager, that's still my dad? I'm so burnt out from the pandemic and trying to figure out how to do my job, what my job even is, and what any sort of pathway towards a job here that I like looks like that I've been pretty checked out for the last 2 months. Yesterday my dad confronted me about that. He asked, "Have you decided construction isn't for you?" It hurt, and I kind of tried to explain everything above, but I'm really close to just saying, yeah, construction isn't for me. I'm out and blowing up the last 10 years worth of a career I've been trying to build here. It would be so much simpler to be out, but I have a lot of pride in this place. It's basically another family member, and I love that it's an ethical company that supports real careers and puts its employees first. But I haven't been happy here for a while. I loved putting together and running that strategic retreat, but now all that work feels like a waste of time, because we aren't doing anything with it. I feel so stuck, and can't see any way out besides just blowing it up. My relationship with my father and brother would be fine if I left. They would understand. The company would figure it out, or it wouldn't and my dad would have to sell. I don't know, at some point it's still just a business, not actually a member of the family, right? I know I have skills that would make this place better, but I feel like they are atrophying after years and years of banging my head against a wall and not getting any sort of direction or plan or mentorship from anyone here, and feeling like all my efforts to develop my role here are just me flailing about. My passion for this place is gone. Maybe that's just post-pandemic blues? But I do know I would feel so free if I hit the eject button. I could go back to school, I could find work/volunteer for causes I care about, I could be a more present mom and spouse if I didn't work here. Maybe that's the right path, to separate family and work, and just let the chips fall where they may? Note that my spouse also has a full-on career working 60 hours a week for one of the tech giants, so balancing work and family is really hard with both of us having career-type jobs and small kids. And while my income is great to have, it's not necessary for our financial stability. The same would not be true if we lost my spouse's income. Update 1. A lot has changed, and a lot has not. Ultimately I'm still with the family construction business and I suspect I will be for the rest of my career. 2 things really hit me after my letter was published. The first being that I didn't really spell out what I like about my job, which you called me out on. So I gave that some thought. On good days, I love my job because I get to problem solve, either internally or on a project. Often I'm working to understand processes, figure out next steps, facilitate communication and find solutions, and every day is different and full of potential. I also love my company because we're the type of employer I think all employers should strive to be. We here, yes, to make money, but also to allow our employees to have a career that supports them in the unfolding of their lives. Just the other day one of our employees thanked me for this being a wonderful place to work, that has supported her through real health issues, and she said she was glad I was starting to take over the reins as the next generation because she knew I would continue to retain that culture of family. Then just last night I attended an awards ceremony where one of our projects was recognized for the historical restoration of a building that was falling apart. This award-winning building is in my neighborhood, it's a place where my family goes to hang out, where I now take my kids for the winter farmers market. It's a building that will be part of my larger community for the next 50 plus years, and my company did that work. I feel real, deep satisfaction some days. I really like and respect both my father and my brother, who I work with daily. None of that came through in my letter, and it was really helpful to catalog all that good stuff because afterwards the hard stuff I was focusing and wrote you about suddenly loomed less large. I also have to say thanks to all of the advice that came from the commentariat that really helped me look at my situation differently. Specifically, I was really taken aback by their accusations of sexism towards my father. I found myself pretty insulted on his behalf, because he is the person who has steadfastly been my champion. We've had blunt conversations about the dearth of women in construction and why, and he sees what this industry is like and doesn't think it should be like this. He wants capable people in places of leadership, including capable women. He believes I have the skills and ability to do it. We just haven't been able to figure out how to get me there / get him to let go. Ultimately, the comments made me realize I was doing a lot of this to myself. I was taking on the HR stuff, I was volunteering to pick up the 401k administration, order the laptops, fix the website, move into the financial side of the company. Long story short, I had to ask if I was being the sexist one by taking on all the administrative tasks that needed doing, when they didn't feel like actual moves upwards. I personally didn't need to own any of it, I just kept taking it on because someone needed to. Maybe it was internalized sexism or maybe it was just being bad at delegating, but I finally saw it, thanks to you all. So we've since hired a new office manager / director of HR, at my behest, and OMG, yes. This person is worth their weight in gold, and now enjoys doing, and does well all of that administrative stuff I had taken on. The new PM who I mentioned in the letter has since started, and I'm training him, which means he's learning to PM the way I want him to, and has been a great addition to our team. And we've also since brought on a vice president of marketing and design, who is potentially going to be our interim CEO instead of me taking the reins directly from my father. This makes a lot of sense in many ways, not least because he has more experience in the industry and with working as an executive, but also because him taking responsibilities from my father is just less fraught. So, now I'm back to being mostly a project manager, which I enjoy and am good at, with flavors of being a manager. I'm still a leader here, I'm on the board of directors and get to weigh in on decisions and what direction we head. People seek out my advice and ask me to address issues, and while the immediacy of taking over my father's role is gone, it's still very much the long-term plan, though the plan is more fuzzy than it was. It's on the to-do list, don't worry. In the near term, I need to focus on landing projects so we can pay these new hires that are doing the stuff I don't want to, which seems like a good trade-off to me. Overall, I'm really proud of the moves I had this company make over the last year, and specifically the last couple months: the hires, the new projects, the changes in roles, and the leadership / accountability structures I've put in place. I appreciate the perspective Allison and the commenters gave me. Update 2. I wrote you way back in 2021 when I was trying to decide whether or not to stay in the family business, and in 2024 I sent you my update. I've since stepped into the role of CEO, for better or worse, and am now facing an ongoing issue for the first time as the leader of this company. We have 3 family members who are part of the business now: my father, majority owner and president, myself, CEO, minority owner, and my brother, VP, minority owner. My brother and I have the same ownership stake, and the idea was that the company will transition to us, and we will be equal business partners. But my brother is undependable. My guess is that he has depression, anxiety, or some type of mental health issue that he has never addressed, and it means he's often mildly unreliable, and then every once in a while he drops the ball in a spectacular fashion that leaves other people to clean up his mess. We've had conversations about this on a number of occasions over the past decade. But about 3 years ago, it really seemed like he was doing much better. He was showing up, answering his phone, responding to emails, doing his job well, and actively participating in executive planning. He said he wanted to be here with me to lead our family business for the long term. And that felt wonderful. The idea of having a partner in this family business, where it can feel very high stakes and very lonely, was such a relief. My brother is smart and thoughtful, and I trust his judgment and views, which often differ from mine, which is great in a business partner. Shortly after that was when long-term plans for ownership were being put into place, and actual ownership stocks started to change hands. I thought my brother and I were going to be a great team. But 18 months ago, there was an incident where he went uncommunicated for a week and left a project manager in the lurch. We had to scramble to find a subcontractor to complete our work. Eventually he showed up and said he wouldn't do it again. And then a year ago, he left on his honeymoon, having completely failed to get a project with a hard deadline started, leaving me having to scramble to make apologies to city officials, track down materials, ask for extensions, and generally get really ticked off at my brother. Once he got back, I, in the presence of my father, told my brother that he needed to see a therapist or in some other way address his lack of dependability, or I would not go into business with him. He agreed and said he'd already talked to his doctor about getting a referral. Over the last year, I've asked a couple times if he's made any progress with getting help, but he's always said he was waiting on insurance or for an appointment, etc. Over the last month he's gotten shaky again, being less and less responsive. Then 2 days ago, I found out he was leaving the country the next day for 2 weeks. He never told me. I found out from my mother. We once again have a project left in the lurch, making other people scramble. He left one of our crews short a member, he gave his guys only one work day of notice, and another employee is scheduling things that he should have scheduled. And I've come to discover that he's put off scheduling a kickoff meeting for another project for the past 3 weeks, ignoring the emails from an angry PM for the state. How do I deal with this? I know I don't want to be in business with my brother under these circumstances. I said that last year, and I meant it, and I set a boundary. And here we are, and it's time to enforce this boundary. I know all that, but I don't know what to actually do and what to actually ask for. My dad sees all this, and is supportive of me. My brother has been doing this to my dad for nearly a decade, and I think my dad is even more fed up and upset than I am. My dad is also a bit of a hothead and a dictator. He wants to straight up fire my brother. I don't know. Maybe that's best? But my brother has good qualities, good skills, and he is an owner and he is my brother. What about a PIP? A leave of absence? A change in role, take him out of leadership? Or did that ship sail last year? Part of what is so hard is that I love him. And he's falling apart at work because of very real, very challenging stuff in his personal life. The other part is, I lived the same childhood as my brother. We had an alcoholic mother and my parents went through a terribly messy divorce, and all that created issues around communication and confrontation and self-worth and shame for all of us, issues that I've worked hard to overcome through my own therapy and coaching. So I'm deeply empathetic to why my brother is the way he is. And I don't want to blow up my relationship with him or my sister-in-law. But I can't do it like this anymore. And ultimately, if we keep going like this, the relationship is already destroyed because I'm so frustrated and angry. And I could work with him, somehow, probably, if he would just communicate with me, if he had just told me he was going to be on vacation, that he had been ignoring these emails, that he was stalling out. But we've tried saying, please, for the love of everything, just communicate. For nearly a decade, and nothing has changed. It's never really gotten better, except for that brief period 3 years ago. I've read through your archives, looking for family businesses hitting similar issues, and this really hit home. We're experiencing these issues, the hit to morale and people talking about leaving based on family members being treated differently. So I know we need to change, and I know there is no way to do it without this being sad and painful. Any advice you could offer to help me figure out some options to move forward that fall between keep doing what we're doing and getting the same result and fire him as soon as he steps off the airplane would be much appreciated. My brother gets back in 2 weeks, and I need a game plan for what our conversation is going to look like. Update 3. The news is all positive, but the path there was not without its challenges. So when I wrote in, my brother had gone out on vacation without giving any notice, again, leaving me and others in the lurch. Many commenters supposed he was entitled and spoiled, making big money for doing nothing, but this couldn't be further from the truth. We're a mid-sized family business, all of us work very hard and everyone is paid a solid livelihood, including the family owners, but no one is making Fortune 500 money. And on the other side of the coin, all the same executive pressures exist. The responsibility to keep this place going, to make the right choices so we survive a recession, survive the competition, and survive the changes in technology and workforce and varying governmental requirements is intense. My brother was buckling under the stress of living up to everything, not least of which was being pulled between my father's expectations and the expectations of his wife, neither of which he could meet and neither of whom he could figure out how to talk to about the reality of what he could and couldn't do. Then go ahead and add the pressure of a very successful older sister, who is his boss, to the mix. Simply put, he was freezing up and stalling out in the face of all that conflict. This is the thing about family business that nothing and no one can really prepare you for. People tell you to compartmentalize. They tell you to separate business from family. They tell you to not let the two worlds mix. But the reality is that you are sitting there, at all times, being both a daughter and a manager, a sister and a colleague, a parent and a boss, a child and a subordinate. There is no separating, no putting on different hats, no being two different people inside yourself. You're just one person, and there actually is no way to keep your family history from impacting your reactions to the other person, and no way to endure one way you have to relate to someone from impacting the other way you relate to them. When it's good, it's really good. But when it's hard, it's everything that is hard about family combined with everything that is hard about business, which is hard indeed. So the very hard choice I made was to decide that I had to do what was best for the company, for the sake of myself and all my colleagues, and to let go of the rest. I had to be okay with losing my relationship with my brother for the sake of the business. When my brother returned from his trip, I put him on unpaid leave and told him that if he wanted to rejoin the family business he would need to come back to a labor/field-only position without any authority. My brother is actually very talented and skilled in many ways, just not as a project manager, so keeping his skills in our workforce was in the best interest of the company and I told him so. But I fired my brother and told him he would have to reapply for a new position because his old position no longer existed. Then, as his sister, I told him I loved him. I told him I would be happy to help him financially while he was out of work. I told him I would be happy to help him find a therapist. And I would be happy to support him and his family in any way they needed during this time, just not through the company. I tried to be there for him, even as I was the one firing him, and he was never upset with me. He saw all of it. He knew he had let everyone down. He knew why I was doing what I was doing. He left the office that day feeling even more awful and more horribly guilty about the whole situation. It took him about 6 weeks of not working, of dealing with the implications of what was happening, of finally being honest with his wife about all of it, for him to come to terms with everything, but he did. He is now regularly seeing a therapist, ironically, my therapist, which is a good thing because she is great, and he is starting to deal with some of the baggage from our childhood. Eventually he did come back to work. Now, day to day he is just a mason, laying brick and block at the direction of others. He was on hiatus for a while from his ownership duties, but he is now back on our executive team since he is still an owner and an officer. Those meetings are after hours so they don't interfere with his field duties. It's still a little bit of a weird setup, because it's still family business. But he is doing his job well and he is much happier now that his role matches his capabilities and he's not constantly worried about dropping the ball or not meeting expectations. And so on my update 4. So, a full year's passed since my brother's transition back into the field, and if I thought I'd finally settled into a smoother era as CEO, I was, hilariously, fatefully, mistaken. It turns out smooth in family business just means you're not actively putting out 6 fires at once. Last fall, I discovered just how deep the tangled roots of loyalty and legacy can actually run. First, the Sunshine, our family company just landed the largest project in its history, a contract restoring 4 historic downtown buildings into community spaces, cafes, incubators, even a daycare. I can finally look people in the eye at neighborhood meetings and say with confidence that our work genuinely matters. Our team's buzzing, press is good, and our new hires are stepping up. That weight of I have to fix this all myself? Not gone, but definitely lightened. But, as always, the clouds arrive. As soon as we started rolling, it became clear our internal structures simply weren't built for something this big. Our old estimation processes were wonky, our reporting lagged. We needed to level up, fast. Here's where it gets wild, and strangely full circle. My father, now semi-retired with more time, and, I swear, a renewed zest for confusing all of us, emailed me, my brother, and our new interim CEO, let's have lunch at mom's old house. Neutral ground, supposedly. When he sends those emails, you know something's afoot. I expected a coronation, a scolding, or a request for a new iPad. Instead, it was a 4-hour marathon of my dad unveiling a moldy banker's box of company records spanning back to the 1950s, yellowed blueprints through 2008, and scrawled notes from my grandfather. He had an agenda. I want you kids to decide now what kind of business we're running. Are we a legacy or an investment? Don't anchor yourselves to my old paperwork. The company's yours. It was both empowering and terrifying. My brother, now more at ease in his mason's boots than half a decade of management put together, listened, then asked, so if we become a B Corp, would that really change how we treat people? I can't adequately describe the silence when he said that. The conversation that followed was honest, and raw. My brother told the room how the only thing that made both his old work and his current job tolerable was knowing the company had a soul and a future. Dad's answer shocked us. I only cared about keeping the payroll met and your mother happy. He meant both literally and as a proxy for harmony, but it landed heavier than he intended. After that, lots shifted. We started structured family council meetings, real ones, not just talk over Thanksgiving dinner marathons. My brother, emboldened by therapy, surprised us as a truth teller. He offered to help lead discussions on mental health and work-life separation at the annual employee retreat. Yes, you read that right. My brother, who would literally rather put on a hazmat suit and clean out a flooded crawl space, than a curveball. I was approached by a local university's construction management program to be a guest lecturer. I'd never seen myself as the inspiration type, but I jumped at it, and shockingly, found real joy in it. The same week, I was asked to join the board of a nonprofit that does trade skills apprenticeships for foster youth. Suddenly, I realized I was excited to bring those ideas back home. Could we create a seasonal internship for kids in hard family situations, using our projects as classrooms? Everyone bought in immediately. HR, our new office manager, who I will never let go, set up the pilot. This month, our very first intern, Jamie, is working side by side with our crew, shadowing my brother. Apparently, he's the most patient teacher you've got, according to her. That almost makes me laugh out loud when I hear it. The thing I always swore would never happen, my dad showing up just to shake hands and tell stories, happened, too. I dreaded it, but it's working. He's become our company historian, giving context to old projects and even starting an Instagram documenting company lore. On the operations front, the interim CEO we brought in has proven to be far more collaborative than anticipated. He asked me to draft, truly draft, a 5-year plan. We hosted a company-wide vision session. People showed up with wild ideas: solar-powered renovations, community gardens, contracted child care for project sites. We're piloting 2 of those now. None of this went off without drama. At Christmas, my brother and I had an epic argument, at grandma's table, pies cooling, children underfoot, about why does it always feel like you're the boss, even at home? That back and forth, with tears and apologies and dumb jokes, led us to put on paper what each of us really wants from the company and from each other. We agreed every 6 weeks we'll meet as siblings, not co-workers, to talk as siblings, no business, just us. Sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's healing. Mostly it's real. If you'd told me 3 years ago that my brother would be thriving in a non-executive role, my dad would be semi-retired and happier, and that I would find energy in public speaking and new ventures, I would have laughed you out of the room. Yet here we are. We're still learning, always a mess in progress, but the culture is vivid again. The company is no longer hanging by the thread of obligation, but energized by curiosity and, dare I say, actual joy. Best of all? At our last all-company meeting, a crew member, one who'd been laid off 2 years ago during the lean season and then rehired, stood up and said, "I want to retire here." My brother gave him a thumbs up from across the room. My father cried. I ugly snorted behind my coffee. I didn't see this future coming, but I'm beginning to understand how we might build something that really lasts. Update 5. This spring felt less like a turning of the page and more like someone tore the old book up and handed me a blank ledger. In January, we had to face what nobody ever wants to talk about, a real, not theoretical threat to the business. For 70 years, our firm's bones have been projects and people and a lot of pride, but even bones can break. The day after New Year's, our CFO called an emergency meeting at 7:30 a.m. A massive payment owed for the downtown restoration we'd just won, the biggest in company history, hit a legal snag. The city's partner developer was suddenly under investigation, all project cash flow froze. Payroll hung in the balance. What followed was a week that felt like living inside a stress test. Our crews clocked in, not knowing if there would be work in 3 days. I was up past midnight, talking with banks, looking at lines of credit and, if I'm honest, Googling how to make payroll when client fails to pay more than once. My brother, who a year ago would have vanished under stress, instead showed up with hot coffee at dawn for the bricklayers, and stayed late to clean up the site. I would have cracked if not for seeing him carry 40 pounds of mortar with a grin and a truly awful joke about how even concrete sets, someday. This time, I didn't carry it alone. After a not insignificant argument, in the server closet, because offices were all full, it was like doing therapy in a wind tunnel. Our interim CEO and I called a full staff meeting with radical transparency. We told everyone exactly what was happening, what the risk was, and what we were doing to keep things together. There was silence, and then a round of applause. One of our masons offered to go to 4-day weeks without us even asking. The office manager, yes, still worth her weight in gold, found a minor accounting error that gave us just enough leak to keep hourly folks flush for another 2 weeks if the worst hit. It was touch and go for about a month. The day our first city check finally cleared, my father brought in a chipped old bottle of whiskey. There is no way it was still good, and insisted the three of us, him, me, and my brother, take a shot at the loading dock. To surviving stupid things our children somehow fix, he toasted, and I realized this, too, was becoming family lore. Out of all that chaos grew something new, stitched together with trust that can only come from going through hell together. It also forced us to face the legacy or investment question in a way that lunchroom debates never could. We realized, legacy only works if that legacy is alive, not static. So, riding fresh adrenaline and facing the fact that we'd gotten very lucky, we did something the old guard never would have risked. We put employee ownership on the table. We began researching ESOPs. Initial reaction at the board was skepticism. Wouldn't that dilute family control? But honestly, seeing the way the crew pulled together, seeing the relief and pride when everyone made it through. It makes you want everyone to own this, not just be a name on a payroll. Over a series of meetings, with my brother surprisingly engaged, he's the one who dug up a presentation from a plumbing co-op that tried this in the 90s, we started building out what a phased transition might look like. Meanwhile, our foster youth apprenticeship program became the talk of the local trades. Jameen, the first intern, was joined by 3 more, all kids who know something about dropping into a world that feels prepared to chew you up. One went off to study construction management at the local community college, another told me she wants to own her own painting business someday. I started getting calls from other business owners asking how we set it up, and even a mention at the city council meeting. For the first time, we decided to hold our annual strategic retreat on site, inside one of the half-gutted historic buildings, dust and all. We gave every employee, from laborer to exec, a hard hat and a blank note card. The prompt was simple: what do you want this company to stand for, 10 years from now? I found notes tucked into toolboxes, stuck to doors: respect, learning, second chances. One said simply, somewhere I can be proud to have my kid visit. When we gathered around folding chairs in the cold, even my notoriously tight-lipped brother got up and spoke, saying, I want this place to be the reason someone stays in this city instead of leaving. If you're waiting for the part where the family drama returns, don't worry, it's always there. At a recent Sunday dinner, over pasta, my father decided now was the time to ask whose name should actually go on the company letterhead. Cue, fork dropping, the sound of 3 generations exhaling. Are we really doing this now? We tabled it, again, through it all. The most unexpected shift is internal. Last week, a project manager came into my office, closed the door, and asked for mentorship. Not a report, not an emergency, just guidance. The only reason I could say yes, without resentment or exhaustion, was because a year ago, we finally started building out a middle layer of leadership, diverse, hungry, collaborative. I can see the company's next era, less a family tree with one thick, brittle trunk and more like a wild orchard, branches everywhere, all entwined. And my brother? He's somehow become the glue when things get weird, mediating a squabble over who should lead the new solar garden initiative, and proposing, with zero irony, a family business therapy fund for employee families. I caught him after a tough day, feet dangling off the old loading dock, quietly telling Jamie that work only counts if nobody's afraid to be honest about screwing up. We're still fully in the mess. My dad still sometimes walks on site with unsolicited advice and a box of donuts. My brother and I still slip into sibling bickering over whether we're growing too fast. The pandemic years and all their hard lessons feel close, and the exhaustion hasn't fully vanished. But as I look around, at historic buildings full of new plans, at a kid laying bricks next to a man old enough to be her grandfather, at next week's board meeting agenda that dares to list democratize ownership, as an actionable point, I'm actually excited.